Hi there, welcome to another episode of IPL Buck Buck. Again, we're here with Akshat, Tom, and Shiv. Today, we're going to talk about last year's finalists who unfortunately couldn't go all the way, but they showed that they have the heart and maybe they could do better this time. Unfortunately, they don't have their captain this time around, so they've had to appoint Rishabh Pant as their new captain, and we'll be covering different discussions about how we see this team and what Pant can personally bring to this team as a leader. To start things off with, Akshat will tell us what he thinks the ideal 11 in his eyes look like.
Right. The first name on the team sheet is Prithvi Shaw. I think he's coming off a brilliant run of form. He scored about 800 runs in 6 games in the Vijay Hazare tournament. To partner him, I'd have Shikhar Dhawan. He has a point to prove, so I think we should watch out for him. He got 200s last year. At number 3, a little bit of a left field selection. I would play Marcus Stoinis. He opens the batting for the Melbourne Stars and he does phenomenally well there. He gets heaps of runs every time he opens. At 4, I'd have Rishabh Pant, who's probably been the best player in the world for the last 3-4 months. So in 2021, I don't see anyone who's batted better than him. At 5, I would have Sam Billings. At 6, I would have Ajinkya Rahane, more on the lines of a floater. So if I see an early wicket, so if Delhi lose their first wicket within the first 2 overs, I'd probably send him there just to sort of steady the ship. Besides that, if they get off to a good start, I don't see him batting. At 7, I have Akshar Patel. 8, Ravichandran Ashwin. 9, 10 pick themselves. I'll have Rabada and not there. And at 11, I'd go with Ishant Sharma. I think he has come under heaps of criticism in the white ball format. But if you bowl him out before the death overs, I think you're good to go. So if I were to captain the team, I'd give him 3 overs in the power play and bowl him 1 in the middle over and finish his quota. So that is my 11. Over to you, Tom Shiv.
Well, I mean, this is a team. For me, you look at it and it's just full of match winners. It's overseas and Indian players. I mean, Rabada, he can win a match by himself. Rishabh Pant wins you a match by himself if he gets going. Stoinis, Hetmeyer. I mean, you haven't even put him in the squad, but Hetmeyer, everyone knows he's got the talent to go and win a game single-handedly. And even sort of, I mean, I don't want to talk about the Test series, but Akshar Patel. And even got the top 2, Shikhar Dhawan and Prithvi Shaw. We've seen great innings from they both scored 100. I mean, Dhawan was sensational in Dubai, especially at the back end. So yeah, I think it's a good team. They have quite a lot of overseas players at the same level. There's apart from probably Rabada, you can see them getting rotated a lot more than the other teams. I mean, gosh, Steve Smith, he can easily get his way in. Chris Wokes, I'm sure we'll talk about him later. But I think it's a good team. But they'll really be fighting for whichever position they end up in this year.
Okay. Right. So I think I really like what Akshat's done with his 11, more or less. I was thinking, how can we get if I were to be a part of the Delhi Capitals team selection thing, for me it would be about how can I get Ajinkya Rahane to avoid batting. So I really liked what he said of that if they lose an early wicket within the first 2-3 overs, then you send Rahane, and if they can buy a bat for 7, 8, 9 overs, then you send in someone like Stoinis, then Pant. For me, instead of Billings, Hetmeyer comes in. Patel and Ashwin are absolutely fine. Rabada and Nortya pick themselves, and Ishan as well. I mean, considering the Indian options they have, you could have an Ishant, or you could look at a Lukman Meriwala, or obviously the legend that is Umesh Yadav. And apart from that, there's also, I think there's Avesh Khan. And so, yeah, but I think this team is also pretty fixed. And yeah, that's pretty much it according to me.
Look at what you gentlemen picked. It looks like a very strong 11, but I see you've missed Steve Smith, a player who's basically been a top 5 batsman in the world collectively, if you look at it. how can you not have Steve Smith in an 11 if he's a part of your squad? And if you can't have him in your 11, what type of role do you see him playing?
Right. So I'll explain my rationale behind not picking Smith. I personally don't rate him as a T20 player. He is arguably the best test batsman of this generation, keeping in consideration that Kohli is part of this generation as well. So I feel Smith greater Kohli in the test format. But where T20 is concerned, I think he takes a lot of time to settle in. So he'll probably take a good 10-15 balls before he starts launching. And I don't think Delhi can afford to do that considering the fact that they want to play an aggressive brand of cricket. So you already have Prithvi Shaw and Shikhar Dhawan opening the batting. And the only position I see Smith, if he had to play to bat here, would be at number 3. And for that role, I already have a Marcus Stoinis there, I have Pant at 4. You could play Smith as a floater, but I wouldn't sort of sacrifice an overseas spot for someone who's not going to bat or bowl. So I see Smith to have been bought in the auction to provide leadership support to Shreyas Iyer. Unfortunately, we know Shreyas Iyer is not playing this IPL. Nevertheless, he's going to be a very valuable asset to the team because he's going to be there in the dugout supporting them and encouraging Rishabh Pant and helping him behind the scenes. So I see that role for Smith this year.
Okay.
Do you have anything to add?
Again, I think I pretty much agree with him. I mean, for me, for Smith to come in, you're looking to drop probably the Billings Hetmeyer position. You're looking to drop someone there. And again, I think it's not worth it. You probably play him at 3 or 4, and then you're pushing someone like a Pant or Stoinis down the order. It's not worth it, according to me. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. I don't think he fits in this 11. I think it will somewhat spoil the balance of the 11 because obviously then you're looking to bring in an Indian instead of Billings Hetmeyer, and then I don't think the team has a lot of quality options. Maybe you can look at Lalit Yadav, but apart from that, no, there's not really too much quality to pick from.
Well, I guess that covers everything in that discussion. So now let's move on. So Rishabh Pant.
No, Han, I want to know the Englishman's point of view on not playing Smith.
The Englishman is pretty hard given the fact that he said Steve Smith is the best test player of this generation. He has not heard a word after that because he didn't mention Joe Root. But okay, yeah, sure. Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
I think it's very different. I think it'll be interesting to see, like 2 or 3 weeks' time, tournament's go on for a while. Steve Smith, massive name in cricket. Can you, especially if they lose a few games, can you keep him outside? Can you keep him happy, saying you're just going to be there for morale? You know, you're a good player, but we don't think you're that good. And I don't know. I think he did a decent job for RR sometimes last year. He's not, as you said, he's not an amazing T20 player. It's not what he's known for. But I think we could see him break into the team and stay there for about, all the way through to the end, especially if they win. Say if he comes in and they win a game, I think he'll stay there for a while.
Tom, would you place Steve in front of Billings or in Hetmeyer?
He's hurting his feelings.
I honestly don't. This is the problem with their overseas players, is that I honestly don't know. I think one name we've forgotten about is the most underrated player in cricket is Chris Wokes. This guy is so underrated. He's an unbelievable cricketer. I was messaging my mates all the way through this T20 series saying, we need Chris Wokes. And the ODI series, where's Chris Wokes? Because he is so good. He was fantastic in the One Day World Cup, T20 World Cups he's played for us. He's great for Warwickshire. And I think he's probably going to end up in this team. I think he'll probably they've picked him up. They know how good he is, but they'll watch him in the nets for the 2 weeks beforehand and realise that he's a quality player and he can bat. He's got a test match 100. Billings, I'd play all three of them if I could. Tom Curran as well, why not? But that's not going to happen. It'll be interesting to see how they float their overseas.
Tom, I actually have a question directly towards you. So you talk about how highly rated Chris Wokes is, But you also have to consider the fact that he's not had any T20 exposure since 2018. Would you still pick him over, say, a Notgi in this team?
That's the interesting one, isn't it? I personally still think he'll be really good. I still think he might have not T20 experience, but I think it's a much bigger. If you say you haven't have experience with a format, T20 is the one where you can adapt to. So if you haven't had much experience of a Test match, say, that's a lot different to saying he hasn't had much T20 time. He has still been playing cricket, and he was playing in England over lockdown. I think it'll be difficult to see how he gets in over Nortje, considering he's got such a high reputation in that team, how good he was in the last tournament. But I still think he's got a place in the team.
Okay, then let's move on and let's talk about the new captain of the team, Rishabh Pant. Now, Pant has been a part of Delhi Capital since he started his IPL career, and this is the first time he'll actually be leading out this team. Now, there have been many questions on whether he's the best choice, considering you've got Shikhar Dhawan, who's been a former IPL captain, Rahane and Ashwin, who were captains in this auction cycle, and obviously Steve Smith, who's been the national team captain for Australia as well. So, do you think that it's a bit of a burden for Rishabh Pant, or do you think it's more about him growing as a player and potentially a future Indian captain? What do you guys think?
Right, yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I mentioned this before as well. I feel he's been the player of 2021 so far, and he's really hit his purple patch and he's hit it hard. So if there were a time to give him responsibility, I think now is the time. Considering the fact that you have someone of the stature of a Ricky Ponting in the dressing room, is what makes me sort of believe that he's going to perform well. What's also interesting to note is that he has the likes of Ravichandran Ashwin, of an Ajinkya Rahane, of a Shikhar Dhawan, and a Steve Smith around him. So they're going to guide him and mentor him. And what you said, Ahan, is a very pertinent point there. India doesn't have a next captain. At least I don't see a next captain after Virat Kohli or someone ready to take the responsibility. So don't be surprised if this move from Delhi Capitals actually pays long-term dividends for Indian cricket. So on the whole, I'd say it's a great choice. If Pant was to be given leadership responsibilities, now is the best time. And it's going to be exciting to see how he does.
Let's get an Englishman's view on it. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you see a lot in sport where someone's given a captaincy, but then if I know Shreyas is not actually in the team, but you have other players in that team who think they're the captain. They've captained other teams, and you end up getting like 3 or 4 people who think they're actually the captain of the team, who act like they're captain of the team. I know Ricky Ponting will probably have a word with all those players, but it's like in that final ball, those big moments when you have a lot of them. We saw in the IPL especially, how many Super Overs did we have? You just want one person, really, 1 or 2 people saying to the bowler what to bowl. And in this team, you think you probably, Rahane could be coming over and saying what to bowl. You've got Smith, if he's playing, could come and, you've got Ashwin, you've got all these players that they're old, they're knowledgeable, and they could sort of interrupt the captaincy, especially Pant, he's a wicket keeper. I'm talking about these big pressure moments which captaincy matters. Is he going to come running all the way down to tell the fast bowler to bowl a Yorker, or is he going to leave it up to the 2 at mid-on and mid-off? And I think it'll be interesting to see the dynamic. I think he's good, as you said, that next India captain, maybe someone's told him to, be an IPL captain. But we'll see. I could be proved completely wrong, but we'll see how it goes.
That's a fair point that you brought up about too many minds sort of spoiling a person. But I see this team as Ricky Ponting's team, and I don't see it as Rishabh Pant's team or Ravichandran Ashwin's team or Ajinkya Rahane's team. There's one man behind the mission, and he sort of has a figurehead in Shreyas Iyer, which is now replaced by Rishabh Pant. So it's more on the present captain to take away from Ponting than, all these other sort of leaders getting in the way.
Now, Shiv, I have a more individualistic question for you. So, as we can see in your background, you've got a picture of Gautam Gambhir there. Now, when Gautam Gambhir initially took up the captaincy for this team in this auction cycle, it didn't really work out, and Shreyas Iyer was given the job. He did a pretty decent job with it. I mean, they made it to an IPL final for the first time and didn't really get to the point where they could hold the trophy. But what happens next season when, let's say, a Rishabh Pant and Shreyas Iyer are there together? Do you keep Pant as your captain, or do you just hand it over to Iyer and write this year off, given the fact that Iyer wasn't available?
I mean, okay, so there are a few factors that are involved over here. For me, firstly, if if Delhi somehow win the IPL, for me, Pant is automatic captain. There's no question about that for me. All right. After that, if they don't win, depending upon the team Ricky Ponting wants to build next year, I mean, you can retain only five up to, I think you can retain 3 or 5. I'm not sure of the exact dynamics. There's those 5, there's 3 retained, 2 right to match, whatever there is. I mean, I think Delhi could look at dropping Shreyas Iyer completely. He's a good player for sure, but why not? I mean, when you're going into the mega option, you're probably going to keep Prithvi Shaw. You're looking at keeping Rishabh Pant. They might even keep someone. They're probably looking to keep Rabada, maybe Northia, and there's obviously Stoinis as well. So I think these players play a more important role in the team. I think Delhi would be in a worse situation if they lost someone like a Rabada or a Northia or a Pant. If they lost a Pant, I think they would be in a bad position compared to the position where they're losing Shreyas Iyer. So yes, Shreyas Iyer's done a good job, but he's not won it for them. He's not going to be there this year. So I think depending on what happens this year, they'll and how this team plays, they'll really reconsider whether they want Shreyas Iyer or not. And if they do want him, is he ready to accept vice captaincy? And other than that, I think just to sum it all up, I think Indians are pretty respectful towards each other, at least the cricketing part. Even if someone's like, even Shreyas Iyer, who's probably just a year or two senior to, sorry, what did I was, sorry, I'm just going to reframe that. Someone like a Shreyas Iyer, who's just a year or two senior to Pant, you'll see that Pant will give him a lot of respect. I've noticed through their social media that these guys, they respect each other a lot. You see Pant calling just players 2-3 years older than him bhaiya and all. So there's a lot of respect, and I think whatever will happen, I think it will be completely cordial, and I think there's no politics and all involved in it. I think whatever the decision will be, I think it will be for the best of the team.
If I
Okay,
were to just add a few pointers, Ahan, before we move on, it all depends, I feel, on on this season and how Pant goes. And if he does go well, remember that next year there are 2 new franchises being added.
Yes.
So don't be surprised if Shreyas Iyer and Pant are leading to different teams next year, because the 2 new franchises coming in adds a different dynamic to the IPL. It becomes a 10-team tournament then.
we'll
Yeah,
be
let's
covering
not.
that in a later video.
And
So
also,
please.
I just like to add another point about the Indian captaincy. So at one point, maybe when KL Rahul was really performing, maybe we were looking at him to lead the Indian team, be the next Indian captain. But his performances have really dropped off. Pant is 23. Kohli has said that he'll retire from one format in 2023. That Pant will be what, 25, 26 by then. He'll be a bit more mature. So I think he could be the perfect candidate. People already call him the next Dhoni. So yeah, for me, he could be the perfect player. And also Shreyas Iyer, according to me, will never be the Indian captain. So I think the franchisees will also look at this, that they would probably want the Indian captain to play in their team. I think that adds a lot of value to a franchise.
Yeah, and let's not forget, we've also got a T20 World Cup coming up this year. That could change everything. You don't realize how big that's going to be. You know, that'll be before the next auction, won't it? Or the big auction.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is going to change everything. But say if Shreyas Iyer goes and have a great tournament, because he'll be in the Indian squad. Even, you know, I don't think Delhi Capitals will win, and it'll be interesting to see when they come back what they do. It was interesting you saying about which players they're going to retain. I think they'll want to keep both of them. I think it could. you just know that they've got a decent squad. They have got a good squad, and I really think that if they let Shreyas Iyer go, that could really come back to bite them.
Tom, who would your 3 be if you had to retain just 3 out of this squad?
Well, 3, then 3. You've got Pant and Shaw are definitely going to be there. They're 2 young guys. I think they have to be there.
Out of the bar, I'd say for sure.
Yeah, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom is lying to you on the spot. Tom would retain Sam Billings, Tom Curran, and Chris Wokes in this position. But moving on from there, where do you guys see this team finishing? Let's start with Shiv. Considering you've elaborated the fact that you don't see Iyer coming back into this team if they win. So do you think this team's capable of winning?
I won't go into what will happen in the playoffs, but I think if you look at the league table, they'll probably finish second for me.
Akshat, what about you?
I think between second and third, I'm sort of calling MI, KKR, SRH, and Delhi in no order. But I think between second and third for Delhi.
And Tom, finally you.
I'm gonna make a big call. I know I've been saying they're a good team, but I think they could really fall out of that top 4. I think there's so many good teams. I think there's so much. I think if there's a team that's going to fall out that top 4, because you're saying, KKR's got to get in there, RCB will probably get in there, and other teams that we haven't even touched on yet. I think DC might be one of those ones. They had a good year last year, but before then they haven't really done much. I think they could end up. If a few of their big players drop off form, then they're in trouble. And I think other teams they can deal with that more than DC can. So I'm going to say 5th.
That's a very big call.
I know. I'm here for the big calls.
Okay, well, I guess that sums up our analysis of this Delhi Capitals team. Please let us know what you think about the team and what you think, who you think should play and what you think Steve Smith is doing for this team. Anyway, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you for the next analysis. Thank you.